What would you do if somebody you knew was talking about suicide? This is a topic that's been on my mind a lot recently. Before I go into this any more, I just want to say that anything shared in this video should not be taken as medical advice or legal advice, and that it's being shared for informational purposes only. Now, got the disclaimer out of the way. What about this is bringing me to record this video today? Recently, I have a friend who's been talking about this, and she's one of the most insightful, kind, generous people that I know. But she also has a really dark side to her. She becomes withdrawn and thinks about ending her life. This reminds me of previous experiences that I've had before living with somebody like this. Many years ago, about 5 years ago to be exact, I used to live with a cousin of mine, Greg. Greg was this really special person to me. I knew it was going to be an amazing relationship together from the day that we met. So I say it was my cousin. He's actually a very distant relative, second cousin, twice removed. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. And we met one day in the remote desert hot springs somewhere in California. I was out there on a camping trip with my ex-girlfriend, of all people. What was I doing going camping with this person? I was going through a difficult breakup with her. We had actually planned this camping trip before we broke up. And I didn't really want to go anymore. But there was something inside me that was telling me to go do this. Now, without really understanding how a lot of this stuff works, I've been living my life this way for a long time. To just listen to what my heart says when I make my choices. Sometimes this has led me to very painful experiences, and sometimes there's been very painful experiences when I have ignored what my heart says. So there's no escaping the pain in life. It's gonna come one day or another, no matter what you do. Anyway, we went on this camping trip together, and it was in these hot springs where I met my cousin. I didn't know he was my cousin, but we had a long chat with each other about religion, politics, traveling, movies, backpacking, just really sort of an extraordinary conversation to be having with a stranger, naked, in a hot spring together. But it was a little too much. His presence was very overwhelming. He seemed very unfocused, and his topics would jump around from this thing to that thing, and I didn't know what was going on with all this, and I was tired from sitting in the hot water, and I had enough. So told him I was going to leave, and just then he said, well, wait a minute, what's your name? Oh, well, it's Joshua. Yeah, but what about your last name? It's Gibbs. Mr. Gibbs, I think I might be related to you. Yeah, I've got some cousins, you see. Curtis Garrett, and Patrice. Sorry, Doug, if you're watching this, he didn't mention you. And I thought, holy shit, dude, that's my dad and his siblings. And just like, I wanted to know so much more. Like, who is this guy? Wait, what's going on? But I was getting out of the water, and I told him that I had to go, and he said, okay, well, I'm done too. And he got out, and he goes to dry off, and I can just see now that his physical condition is really not very good. He says, hey Ed, you'll have to call everybody Ed, by the way. Hey Ed, can you help me I thought he was like forgot my name already, that was his thing. Can you help me put my shirt on? Can't get it very well myself. And he invited me to go take a trip down the road to the restaurant near where he was staying, and we could talk and have a bite to eat. I went back to the tent where I was staying at this portion of my trip, and I told my traveling companion, my ex, I said, you're not going to believe what just happened. I just met my cousin in the hot springs, and he wants me to go meet him and talk some more. Well, of course, you can come too, so let's pack up and we'll go see him. And so we went, and he just told me this absolutely incredible story about the problems with his family, the legal issues that he was facing. He had spent time in jail. He's got these 3 pit bulls, doesn't really know where to go. The criminal cases were still pending. He had, there hasn't been a judgment on those. And it was like living in a movie. Actually, the guy had produced a Hollywood documentary himself about Arnold Schwarzenegger running for president, running for governor, California. And I just thought, what is going on here? How did I meet somebody like this? How are we related? I'd never even heard of the guy before. And yet he knew that we were family. So, to kind of jump ahead in the story, after I met him, I ended up quitting my job. I was working as a massage therapist, and I decided I would live with him. He had this idea, he wanted to start up an old business, and he also needed help. He wanted massage. I had gone and done that for him, and then we had driven to a court appointment together. I took care of his dogs, and in that trip, I was starting to see that there was actually an opportunity to work together. He had this, I thought it was an amazing idea to start this business of selling coffee from Jamaica and Hawaii, which he had given up previously. Of course, that wasn't really going to happen yet because he could barely walk. He was homeless. He had these 3 pit bulls, which I loved, by the way. These dogs were so dear to me. So we had to get a house together. We moved to Carson City, Nevada from LA. Well, I moved. He was homeless at the time. I actually got kicked out of the place that he was renting soon after I met him. I later found out that this was a habit, a pattern of his. He got kicked out of almost any place that he had ever lived in his whole life. And so we spent time together. I would do massages for him every week. Multiple times a week, actually. And we would drive down to LA from Carson City, where we were living, so he could pick up the money from his family, which he had shares of ownership in their real estate business, and he had to collect checks every month because he had no bank account. Yeah. And so we went through this back and forth once or twice a month between LA and Carson City, getting money in LA, going back to Carson City where I do massage, take care of his dogs, and eventually I ended up finding some other people to help out because I realized that it was just kind of too much to do on my own. The guy's problems were just enormous, and I was struggling. Eventually, after about 6 months of living together, well, sometime before that, he had been talking to me and said that I want to leave some money for you. Actually, I want to leave all of my money to you when I die because he said I've got no family. They won't even talk to me anymore. I got no children, and you're the only one here who cares about me. You're taking care of me. Nobody else wants to do this, so I want to leave this for you. But then he became really depressed, and this dark cloud followed. The darkness was incredible. I had been through depression myself, but I'd never experienced what he was going through. There were some days where it just felt like death was waiting for him. Like I could almost see this angel of death just sitting over him, ready to take his life. Eventually, he did write this will, stating that he was giving everything to me upon his death. And then after that, he really started to go downhill. I guess that was probably a sign that he wasn't doing well when he realized that it was time to write this if he actually meant it. Sometimes people don't really write wills or estate plans until they start to get old and consider their own life. Of course, if you do have a bunch of money or anything that's worth giving away or people to take care of, it's probably a good idea to create something like this sooner rather than later, because you just never know what's going to happen in life, do we? Anyway, I felt really disappointed at this point because I wasn't actually that interested in inheriting his money. I wanted him. We had the most amazing relationship together. He was hands down the funniest person I've ever met. I don't even have to think about it for a moment. We laughed so much when we were together. And it was this very self-deprecating humor where he talked about himself a lot and his family and just how screwed up his whole family was. And I come from kind of this crazy family myself, and we just really bonded, especially on these nights in motels back and forth between Carson City and LA. God, we had some good laughs. And I felt like if he was gonna die, I was losing my best friend. I already lost my mom several years before that, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing somebody else like this. I was dealing with these feelings of regret or shame. Felt like I had abandoned my mom and didn't take care of her when she needed me there the most. And I was afraid I was going to do the same thing with Greg, or that it was happening already. And that's because I wasn't taking care of myself well enough. I didn't understand the importance. I didn't have the tools and the foundation for a daily practice to keep myself centered and grounded and happy and present and healthy. so that I could give from an overflowing cup. Because when we try and give to people first without taking care of ourselves, we get depleted and run down and exhausted. This was a pattern that I'd learned since I was a child, to take care of others, try and heal and rescue others as a way of avoiding myself, as a way of not having to face the pain that I was feeling in my own body. Couldn't bear for this to happen again. But it seemed that it was happening. And after he wrote that will, there were not many good days left that he had. In fact, he had started talking more about how he just couldn't take it anymore. The pain of being separate from his family, the fear of never seeing his mother again after being separate for so many years, not talking to each other, these pending criminal cases. He was worried that he was going to get convicted over some ridiculous petty bullshit that happened during an earlier period in his life when his past was finally catching up to himself. And as I said, he had this pattern of being homeless or getting kicked out of everywhere that he lived for many, many years. And that last time that it happened, it just was tied up in this series of events that led to one criminal charge after another against him. He was afraid that he was going to get convicted and put in jail and spend whatever little life he had left behind bars, alone, uncared about, until he died. He also didn't see a way of being able to regain his health anymore. He had had so many injuries in life. And for him, that was just something that you dealt with. He said, you get injured, you recover from it, and you keep going. Or maybe you build your life around the injury. But he said, this time it's different. He said, I don't know what's going on, Ed. But he said, I'm just not getting better. He couldn't let go. He was carrying so much emotional baggage from his whole life, actually. And I could see it. It all came back to his feeling that he just wasn't good enough. That no matter what he did, he felt like he could never make his father proud. And I love that. Because all this stuff that he was going through has helped me to see some of the issues that I've been faced with in life. He's helped me to see a higher way of dealing with things. And so not only did he talk about how his life is going to end soon and how he can't bear to deal with this anymore, he even started to ask me to kill him. And I was getting really freaked out by this. This never happened before, actually. He said things like, I said, but Greg, what do you want me to do? You asked me to kill you? I said, first of all, if I do that, I'm immediately going to be the first person to I'm immediately going to be, considered a suspect, perhaps. I mean, I don't know what happens if a suicide is looked at as being like, being killed by somebody else or murder or whatever, manslaughter, whatever you call it. And even if not, perhaps somehow I would still be seen as partially liable because you're writing this will for me. And then they're going to think, well, it must be him. He just did it because he wanted the money. And Craig said, well, I don't know. You just have to figure that out yourself, I guess. But I can't deal with this anymore. Like, can't you just smother me with a pillow? Or let's get in the car together and drive out to the mountains. You can drop me off alone and leave me for the bears to come eat my body. Yeah, he actually said that. And it just became too much. I didn't know what to do. I had been seeing a meditation teacher with him up until recently when he couldn't go anymore. And he had been helping me. He taught me about meditation at this time when I really needed it the most. I had been introduced to the idea of this daily practice, and it just never stuck with me. I practiced Kung Fu and Tai Chi in Long Beach when I lived there, and my teacher taught about meditation too. I practiced it sometimes, yeah, it was helping me, but I could never get these habits grounded into my life. And this new teacher here was helping me too, and he was saying the same thing. You gotta meditate and connect to the source and activate your higher powers. And I wanted him to tell me what to do. Like, how do I fix this problem with Greg? And there was no answer. He would basically tell me that I don't know, but that you're doing a great job, that he's so fortunate to have you in his life. And I didn't feel that way. I felt like I wasn't good enough. Felt like I was going to let him down. And finally I said, you know what, Greg? I understand you're in pain. We've talked about, calling 911. You can go to the hospital. No, I don't want to go. Don't want to go to the hospital. Okay. I said, I shaved my face with, well, not now, but I was shaving with one of those, what do you call it? A safety razor, the kind that you replace the double-edged blade inside. I shave with this. Oh, I just get very emotional thinking about this. Nothing happened, but I often thought, like, how could I do that? Was I a bad person for telling him this? I'm going out. I'm gonna go take the dogs for a walk or go shopping or whatever it was. I had these other responsibilities of taking care of him and like making sure we had food to eat, that his dogs were walked and fed, and also taking care of myself. I wasn't very good at it, but I was trying. I said, I'm going out. Here's a razor. It's on your bathroom sink. And I came back home, and he was alive still. He didn't kill himself. He told me he even used the razor to cut into his tube of toothpaste to imagine what it would feel like laying in the bathtub and letting himself bleed out into the water. And he said, I just couldn't do it. I don't know why, but I'm afraid. He said, I'm afraid of dying, even though it's all I think about now. And eventually, he did go to the hospital. Not because I called. He called 911 himself. He told them that his dogs were going to escape and break down the fence and hurt somebody. And they decided on this call that it wasn't really about his dogs, but that it was a distress signal, that he was showing some signs of suicidal ideas. And the sheriffs came and they called me when I was out shopping for food one day. And they said, Joshua Gibbs, you live with your cousin Greg Abraham, right? Well, we're over here and he's gonna go to the hospital. You know how expensive ambulances are in the States here, so if you're available, why don't you come on home and pick him up and go give him a ride yourself? So I did. And he stayed in the hospital. Eventually he got out, and just to kind of wrap up this segment of the story, eventually he did die. About 4 months later after he had written that will for me. And after that is another story that I will share one time, because I really want to stay focused on this particular topic here about suicide and mental health. Now, I was not proud of what I told him to do. I was not proud of myself for watching him die when I just wanted him to live. Actually, you might say, if hoping that he dies so you can take his money is a selfish thing. But what I wanted was selfish too. I wanted him to live. I was so attached and holding on to this outcome of him surviving so that we could grow our life even more together. And it made it so much harder for me because I just couldn't let go. I was holding on to so much. So, if you've been in a dark place, if you've been thinking that what is there left to live for, or if you've got a friend who is in that place themselves, whoever's watching this and needs to hear this message, I just want to tell you that I love you so much. And even though we may be apart, that I'm here with you. And I believe in you. And that no matter what you want to do, I support you. I might be able to offer somebody advice on, oh, you should do this or you should do that. And I'm moving past that in my life. I can offer something, but I'm letting go of the outcome. Even if the outcome is as painful as losing somebody. And it's not because I don't care about them. It's because this present moment is the most valuable thing I have. It is the most valuable thing that I am, because I am this moment. And if I say that my relationship with you is more important than this moment and my connection to myself and everything that I am, is not as important. And I know from my own experience with depression and dark thoughts that it's when I focus too much on other people, trying to fix them, trying to help them, trying to hold on to them, instead of just being. That's when the dark thoughts have come into my life. So I know now what I wish I could have known years ago when I was dealing with this situation in Greg. All I had to do was just be myself, connect to this moment, recognize that I am awareness, I am love, I am freedom. All these things that I was trying to seek outside of myself. I used to think that only external things like that were obviously outside of me, like money or people or places, could be the external things that I was chasing. Now I know that even a feeling or a concept or an idea is something that I can chase. But I don't have to anymore. I don't have to chase love. I don't have to chase freedom. I don't have to chase abundance. I don't have to chase any of these things because they are me. And by knowing that, I am creating a better possible future myself in this present moment so that I can show up and be of greater service and be the guide for people that I wish I could have been when my mom died, to be the guide that I wish I could have been when Greg died, and to be the guide for myself when I'm going through these hard experiences and I need somebody there to hold my hand and tell me that it's going to be okay. Because I can do that for myself. I don't need somebody else to do it for me. And I'd like to offer you that you can do it too. You can be there for yourself in those dark times when you're unsure of what to do, when the thought of losing somebody is too overwhelming. Just show up every day. Choose yourself. Take care of yourself. And the doing that seemed to come at a cost, so much effort, so much struggle, everything will start to fall in place naturally. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. I really hope that you got something out of this. If these videos are helping you, please subscribe to the channel, like it, drop a comment down below. And I'll see you next time.